Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who planned on saying something different at his press conference, but I think something happened with a beat writer in the stands, and that got in the way with everything. He knows what Brown can do for UNC, but he also thinks that Victor would be the preferred Mr. Freeze down there on the plains at Auburn. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln Riley?
We're doing great, man. Other than thanks to all the BYU fans in my mentions for pointing out that I definitely forgot to put them in the projected AP top 25. Got them back in there after I got all those messages. It was a late night. I don't know if you watched the Saturday reaction show. Was not functioning on all cylinders at all, but always respect to the Cougs.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the Cougs today. They're going to be one of the more interesting teams here with the college football playoff rankings coming out on a Tuesday. To never forget, I'll tell you that much.
Dude, it's gotta be a hell of a Tuesday between things going on in the United States of America and the NFL trade deadline and God knows what else is gonna happen that day.
Hang out with Bubba too. You never really know what's going to happen there. Hey, Bubba.
Hey, Bubba, it's always a scary proposition.
And I think that's something that happens when Ward Manuel sees your athletic director and Bubba Cunningham. Hey, Bubba. Yes, we're gonna go. Our first, that was so funny. I can't believe I did that.
Hey, Bubba.
But yes, our first and 15 is going to be from Ward Manuel's manual. We're going to pretty much do this like every show for the rest of the season because
Yeah.
it's playoff time. We'll react to maybe what we think the AP is going to do. Maybe not on Monday. We'll see. But for now, it makes sense because we don't know the AP top 20. We know the AP top 25. We don't know the playoff rankings. So looking at the final AP top 25 before we get to the playoff, I wrote about this for fanside.com, like things that I think will be different.
hmm
I feel like I'm just talking in word salad as I'm doing it because, like, they'll be ranked and then they'll be seated. So maybe that's the vernacular we need to use because, like, I already broke my brain, bro, before you break it.
I mean, to some degree, like I do think that the big difference between the college football playoff rankings and the AP top 25 is just there's less that comes out in the wash. Like when you have 60 AP voters, like you're gonna get some outlier votes and stuff like that. If that happens with a 12 team committee as they're agreeing and deciding on things, there's a lot less like safety net for that to be helped out. Like, Texas A&M coming in ranked at 15 this week after the loss to South Carolina, there's a good chance that they could be lower than that because they have like these two lost teams that are populating like the 11 through 20 range. Depending on what the committee thinks of those losses, that could be different. Whereas the AP has so much confirmation bias in it from the beginning of the year that that's treated a little bit differently. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Clemson was outside of the top 20. They've dropped down to 19 in the AP poll, but in the college football playoff rankings, if they were outside the top 20, wouldn't surprise me at all because what good win do they have? Their best win is NC State right now.
You bring up a great point there. Like, there's two things that we can't account for here. So with the 62, 63 AP voters we have, as best as they want to do it, there is still some preseason bias impacting this
hmm
poll. It's human nature. There's
Oh yeah.
really, it's like thinking exponentially is not in a human brain can't do that with growth functions. It's the same sort of thing. We can't forget what we just saw. Even like if it was 9, 10, 12 months ago, it's still in the back of our mind. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
but with the way that the playoff committee, the selection committee does it, like they do it like blind. So the way that they rank it in their process, like I can't really explain it perfectly, but like it kind of eliminates said biases. But you also bring up a point there with like, it's gonna look vastly different than what we expect. And there's always major upheaval with the first one. And I have a feeling they're gonna knock Penn State back much more than the AP voters did.
I agree with that. I would have knocked Penn State back further. I mean, look, Penn State doesn't have a bad resume, but they don't have a great resume. They don't have a resume of even a Tennessee. Like they do not have an Alabama win under their belt. They really don't. And like their resume is very comparable, frankly, to Indiana's at this point but Indiana doesn't have the Ohio State loss on their docket
Right.
yet. So like you're looking at all of these things and it's like, does Penn State really stack up as the sixth best team in the country? And I don't quite think so. Like, especially after what we saw, you just mentioned what we just saw is going to affect how we rank these teams. And we just saw this Penn State team get every opportunity to beat Ohio State and still come up short. And so like like the committee is going to have that fresh in their brains.
Yes, there's things here that like I mean, I think that they'll value Miami and BYU being undefeated
Hmm.
very high. I think BYU is going to be ranked much higher than 9, just because like you've got the head-to-head win over SMU and you got the head-to-head over K-State, who's I would still venture to guess K-State will still be in there because the way that they do this is like if you've got a chance to be in the
Hmm.
playoff, you're going to be in there, which is why I don't think Clemson's going to fall all the way out. Like there's only 27 or 28 teams that are still in it,
Yeah.
and 28 that would be essentially like Raging Cajuns is like the weakest team that could be in there. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Tulane's in the top 25.
No, I wouldn't either. And to be clear, I wasn't saying Clemson falls out of the top 25, just more in the 25 to 21 range as
Right.
opposed to inside the top 20. Because like, yeah, Clemson's still one of the top 25 teams in the country. Like I'm not arguing against that. It's just I think they're closer to 21 to 25 than they are the top 10, quite frankly.
Absolutely. I'm also thinking that like looking at the AP top 25 poll, like we're picking it at this point, and I would say like there's a chance that we may see Miami will probably be ranked in the top 4.
Yeah.
They might even get the 2 seed because they may value them more than Georgia potentially.
There's a chance at the same time, like, does Miami have a single win that compares to Georgia beating Texas or
Or
Georgia
Clemson.
beating Clemson? Yeah,
No.
exactly. So like Miami does not have that win to bolster them at this point. And so we've seen before that the committee tends to value quality wins more so than and quality losses, to be clear. Like the loss to Alabama doesn't look bad. Alabama is currently number 11 in the AP top 25. So like that loss doesn't look nearly as bad as it could potentially. And so like I do think that Miami's resume in I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm curious, and it's impossible to know at this point. I'm curious to see what the committee thinks regarding the ACC and the Big 12 and kind of the I mean, I don't mean to disparage those conferences when I say this, but the easier schedules and the easier paths to this point these teams have had.
Yes, how they stack up BYU, Miami, and Indiana is going to be utterly fascinating. I would say Miami has been the most consistently strong team throughout the season. I would say that Indiana's been the most impressive with what they beat. I think BYU's got the best resume. It's just how
Mhm.
you stack those all up. I would venture to guess they're all going to be ranked inside the top like 10, very easily, maybe top 8.
Yeah, I mean, the AP voters finally wisened up and put Indiana inside the top 10, coming in at number 8 this week. So, that's good. Finally, recognizing a team that does not lose and does not win close games. They win by a lot. So, like, at 9 games into the season, it's about time that you break them into the top 10.
Course. And the last team I definitely think we need to talk about is Alabama.
Hmm.
That's probably talk about them very much here the next 2 segments. That's a very interesting part with all this. So they've got 2 losses. The 2 losses aren't bad. They've got a big win over Georgia. Got the big win over the one over Mizzou still counts something because Mizzou will probably be in this because they're still technically alive. But you wonder like how far up you can realistically put a 2 loss team this early into the playoff picture.
Yeah, it's going to, I imagine we're going to, like, one of the things that I think we will see, and people are probably going to push back on it, but a team like SMU, I think is going to be way higher and probably ahead of Alabama because they now have a quality win over Pitt. They have dominated a lot of the ACC competition that they've seen. Their one loss was a 2-point loss to an undefeated BYU team. Like SMU vaulted up 7 spots in the poll. I think they could go even higher in the college football playoff rankings. You look at potentially where do they put Boise? Like, do they put Boise ahead of Alabama? Because like Boise's one loss was a 3-point loss to the number one team in the country. That's their
Yeah.
only loss in the entire season. So like it's going to be really fascinating, and how Alabama fits into the equation is one of the biggest talking points in my opinion.
No question. I cannot wait until we get to that point. But, playoffs, you're kidding me.
That's right.
Oh, our 12 team brackets and our first four out. We were so good last time keeping time. It was unbelievable. Hopefully, we do well this week here. So let's do one through four. I think that's probably the safest way to go before we get to 12.
Yeah, so 1 through 4, I think is pretty self-explanatory. It's one Oregon, two Georgia, three Miami, four BYU. And I
Yeah.
don't think like if you have another projection at this point, I don't know what you're watching.
You could maybe have BYU ahead of Miami, but at that point, even that feels like a stretch. You can't put Texas in over Georgia. I don't think you can put Indiana in over Oregon. Those are the four. That's the order. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, that's the top four for sure.
Okay, so how do I say this delicately? Your group of five winners is Boise State, right?
Yes, it's still Boise State
Are they still at 12 though?
for now.
Yes. That was the most interesting thing while I was doing this. It's so close between who I've got at them at 12 and who I've got at 11.
Mhm.
Again, we'll unpack that here a little more. How do we say this without like spilling the beans here? Like that's our next topic.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking. We'll unpack more about Boise State's chances to be more than just the 12 seed. Like we're pretty confident that they're going to be the G5 champion as long as they take care of the Mountain West Championship game, and because like that's the wrinkle that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting. Like it's not the highest ranked G5 team; it is the highest ranked conference champion. So if Boise State loses to UNLV in a rematch in the Mountain West Championship game, they're not eligible for this anymore.
No, UNLV would be eligible for this.
Hmm.
You also wonder what Washington State's in the same bucket essentially as Notre Dame. Their only loss is to Boise State. And then you're looking at essentially who did I have here? Okay, essentially you'd be looking at Army or Tulane out of the American who haven't lost a conference game yet. Raging Cajuns who haven't lost in the Sun Belt. And that's it.
That's. I mean, you could. The did you mention Army? Because like
Yeah,
Army,
Army and Tulane are very much alive in the American.
yeah, the American is kind of like I certainly feel that if Boise State were to not win their conference championship, that it'd be Army or Tulane, like whoever comes out of the American, because like the Sun Belt, frankly, is just not what the Sun Belt was last year. Like we've seen Troy drop off, we've seen a lot of these teams in the Sun Belt really drop off from what they were a year ago. So I think there's a drop off in that league. UNLV with now two losses, it's going to be and like, you basically split with Boise State. I just don't see that outranking whatever Tulane and Army are doing from this point forward. So like I feel like the American champion would be the one that you're putting in that instance.
The only way that Louisiana would get in is all of that. And if Tulane won with three losses, then you would probably
Yeah.
put the Raging Cajuns in at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that's their only loss is to Tulane, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, what I've seen from Tulane in the AAC, until we get to the American Championship game, I have a hard time seeing Tulane losing. I mean, their two losses to this point are to Oklahoma and Kansas State. Both of those games were competitive. So like this is a good football team.
Okay, so we got the same four and the same guy as number 12. Who do you have at five, Cody?
Five, I still have Ohio State, just because I'm still not to the point where I think Indiana is going to beat them. I can get there. Trust me, I can get there for sure. But right now, I think that they run the table and are still playing for a Big Ten championship game. And if they're playing Oregon for the Big Ten championship, I really think that that just kind of ends up with either a split or, okay, you lost to Oregon twice. You're still going to be a really highly ranked team in the college football playoff. Like, sorry, you couldn't beat the number one team in the country.
Yes, I have Ohio State at five as well. I moved them up from seven. Getting the head-to-head tiebreaker over Penn State is massive. I feel like with all these things, with all these tiebreakers, there's one team that ends up playing everybody. Like
Hmm.
K-State's that the Big 12. I don't think there's anybody quite like that. Maybe it's Pitt in the ACC or the closest thing. But Ohio State is going to play Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State, and those
Yeah.
are all like it will be decided. Even if Ohio State loses to Indiana or Michigan, they're still probably going to make the playoff at 10 and 2. It'll be very close, but
Yeah.
like
Definitely don't
maybe
lose
like
to both. Definitely don't
yeah.
lose to both.
And at that point, if you lose to both, Ryan Day's gone. Like
Oh yeah,
that's
100%.
anything else. It's too nuanced for me to really get behind him being asked to leave.
I have some sad news that just broke for you as a Falcons fan. Dennis Allen just got fired. So now the
Okay.
Saints are going to have a functional head coach, possibly.
I was sitting there, I put that out there on the Facebook page. I'm like, this is like a league of consequence. I said like it's probably gonna happen,
hmm
but like if you lose to the Falcons and then you lose to the Browns in the bye, does has the interim been named yet? Is it Clint Kubiak? I don't think it is. It's probably
Let's see what the breaking news alert says. Has not said anything yet. I'm just literally just a Bleacher Report notification at this point. So that's all I've got to work with.
that team is we'll probably lose to them. It's just like that team is in a really bad spot. I know you guys talked about your Cowboys being in a bad spot. Saints is like so much worse.
And yet the Cowboys lost by 30 to them. So, that's where the Cowboys are at.
Yeah, it's the didn't mean to do the dirty bird. I just can't really dance too much in the chair, but yeah, that's I did say today was going to be something of consequence. That's they had to do it. Gail Benson just like I can't do this anymore.
Oh God. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail us. I knew that was relevant news to your life.
That's good. That'll help. Yeah, that's very important for me. I definitely talk about that on the Blog and Nerdy podcast on Wednesday when I'm flying solo like a cup after hanging out with Bubba. Be coming to you live on YouTube probably about 6:30 Eastern, a little bit later than normal because movement comes and movement goes, and this is
The
false.
movement, baby.
So we've agreed on the first six teams we mentioned here. So who do you have at six?
So at 6, I think we might agree again. I have Texas here,
Yeah.
and kind of the same situation as Ohio State. Like, even if they were continue go on to the SEC championship game, lose to Georgia, they're still going to be a highly ranked team, man. Like, they have quality wins under their belt. They'll have the Texas A&M win in that case if they do go to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. So like, too many quality wins and like a good football team that just couldn't beat Georgia.
What's I'm trying to remember like, off the top of my head. I feel like I don't watch Texas play very often. Like they're on buys a bunch. It's like
I think they might have like 5 buys. It's weird. I don't understand it quite.
what's their best win still? Is it Michigan?
Their best win, Michigan or I'm trying to think. I mean, the Vanderbilt win looks better and better by the
Yeah,
day.
I think it's Vanderbilt now because like the other wins, it's like I don't know.
And I
I
mean,
feel like I'm
like,
missing one, but
I
I would
mean,
agree.
the Oklahoma win because it is a rivalry game. And I think like the thing that stands out with me to me with Texas is kind of the same thing that stands out with Indiana, just minus the zero in the loss column. But like they outside of the Vanderbilt game, they haven't played these games close. They blew out Michigan. They blew out Oklahoma. So like they're not leaving any doubt in these games that they should be winning.
Right. I think it's also like I would venture to guess they're going to probably win the rest of their regular season games. I think the reason I've got them at six as opposed to five with Ohio State, it's like all things equal, if they're both 2-2, I think Ohio State gets sent over that. It comes
Yeah, I
down
agree with that.
because like that'd be factoring in an A&M loss for the Longhorns and then probably either an Indiana or a Michigan loss for Ohio State. Indiana a little more it's easier to stomach than a Michigan loss for Ohio State, but yeah, I'm right there with you with Texas. I feel like they're a lock, dude. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty much like they're in. Seven is interesting. Who do you have at seven? We may disagree for the first time here.
7, I've got Notre Dame. And just because like I think the path is so simple, like there's no landmines. There's not. Like you have 3 or 4 winnable games left on your schedule. Army is their best opponent. We're still remaining. We saw what they did to Navy. As I've said, that's not going to be a competitive game. Notre Dame is going to win that one by a lot of points. And like outside, like barring another Marcus Freeman collapse, this team is going to end up 11-1. Don't have to worry about a conference championship loss. Whereas most of these other teams are in danger of that or have already taken a bad loss or are like fighting, on the bubble. Notre Dame's not going to be on the bubble. Notre Dame's going to be able to waltz in here, and I think they're just going to comfortably settle in at the 7-8 range.
I do not have Notre Dame at number seven. I've got them coming up here just next. I feel like I'm looking at their schedule and everything like that. Also looking at a USC schedule because I've got some USC thoughts, obviously. I'm cackling from my ivory tower with Paul Feinbaum with much better hair.
Oh yeah, 100% with actual hair, basically.
Um, like the second hardest game on Notre Dame's schedule is home versus Virginia. And by the time they play USC, USC might already be eliminated from playoff contention. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at this with USC. I'm seeing if this is possible. So they've got USC's got it's 4-5. They've got 3 games left. They got to host Nebraska. That's going to be a sad game. Maybe that's Antonio in a couple weeks, to be honest with you.
That sounds good because what the hell has happened in Nebraska, bro?
They hit the asymptote of 5 wins and they can't clear it, dude. It's like it's a square root function, it just doesn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't really a doing math podcast either, but there might actually be a chance. I'm looking at UCLA. Like UCLA might actually be the team that goes bowling over USC this year.
What a world. What a world we're living in.
I don't think you could fire Deshaun Foster. I don't think. Okay, Iowa, Washington, USC, Fresno. If you take either Iowa or Washington, you're going bowling. I might take the Bruins over the Trojans at this point.
At this point, yeah. I mean, what has USC shown us that says, hey, you should definitely trust this team?
Oh my gosh. I haven't seen somebody wanting to leave Hollywood faster than Lincoln Riley since James Caan decided to retire to hang out with his kids for 15.
Honestly, like I'm so at my wits' end. Come to the Dallas Cowboys, Lincoln Riley. That's where I want you. Be Hollywood. Be Jerry Jones's poster child.
Oh man. I think you're just going to become a Cardinals fan at that point. It's
Oh
honest.
God.
But I have Indiana at 7. That's who
Okay.
I've got there. I just kind of feel like, and we talked about them earlier. Like Miami's been on top of those 3 undefeated teams the longest. BYU's got the best resume. Indiana just beats the snot out of people. Coach Sig, 9-0. You've got what? You got what? Michigan, Ohio State, and then you got Purdue. So
Yeah.
if you just split with Michigan and Ohio State, you're pretty much in. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, even if you lost both of those, you still have a compelling case.
You definitely still have a compelling case. It's going to be hairy, given like you're going to need help in that case. If you're 11-1, I don't think you need any help, and I think that's the big like crucial factor to consider.
Yeah, it's going to take like, but again, I don't see them losing to Michigan. I don't see them losing to Purdue. They might lose to Ohio State, but at that point, they're 11-1. They're at.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'll be honestly at this point with Indiana, the more interesting question to me is what happens if they beat Ohio State? Where does that put Indiana after that? And like, what are their chances against Oregon? Like, those are the conversations that we have to be having. But like, as of right now, we said it on Saturday night. Indiana's looking like a lock, man. There's not a lot of paths at this point based on what we've seen and based on who's left on the schedule where this team's not in the playoff.
The most surest lock is Oregon at this point. I was thinking
Oh yeah,
about that. After that, still probably Georgia. I would say
yeah.
because like they can't lose to Tech. If they lose to Georgia Tech, that would probably be it. But other than that, like they can lose to Ole Miss, Tennessee, and be fine.
Yeah. It would be like, I don't think it's going to happen, but like if they lost to both of those teams, that could make an interesting conversation. Still there's no bad losses there. And, put does 9-3 Georgia still make the playoff in like into reality? But I still think like, I don't foresee that being a conversation that we end up having to have.
For sure. So I feel pretty confident, or a little bit less confident after saying that at midnight Eastern. But that's how it goes. We forget things. We forget about BYU. We forget to do math. But I have Notre Dame at 8. Who do you have at 8?
So at 8, I have Tennessee, and it's something I talked about on Saturday night. I don't think Tennessee is the eighth best team in the country. I truly do not think that is the case. I just think their path to that point is very easy right now. Like you can lose to Georgia and still end up as the 8th seed because as long as you beat Vanderbilt, which you're more convinced that Vanderbilt's going to win that game than I am at this point. I do think that like if you beat Vanderbilt, you go in at 10-2, you have a win over Alabama on your resume, like you have enough to be in that 8th seed. And whereas like some of these other teams and I just think like some of these other teams are going to not have that to their credit necessarily. So that's going to work in Tennessee's favor in the end.
I get that. I don't really trust Tennessee at all. I'm gonna wake up and just not respect Tennessee. Like
That's fair.
that's just my modus operandi. But so I have Tennessee coming up, so I'll say 9 and 10 real quick just to kind of like get off. So I've got Penn State at 9 and Tennessee at 10. I think that their paths of getting in are
Okay.
very, very likely. I just feel Penn State's like their chances of going in 11-1 are much easier than Tennessee's, and the Big Ten's going to get three, maybe four teams in, whereas the SEC is going to get 3 to 5. They may even only get three in this year. That's kind of the way the cookie crumbles. But I would say Tennessee is going to be right there with the Georgias and the Texases of the world. I just feel like they've got. I mean, they were a team I had going 11-1
Mhm.
during the season, so during the season. So yeah, not much separating Penn State from Tennessee for me, but that's kind of how I got 9 and 10. So yes, did I skip you a couple of times?
Did you said you had Notre Dame at 8, just to
Yeah.
clarify? Okay,
Yes.
okay, just making sure. So 9 I have is where I have Indiana. Again, I'm not convinced that they beat Ohio State. I am convinced that they beat Michigan, but like I think if you're not playing for your conference championship game and you don't necessarily have you don't have a ranked win on your resume, like the committee is going to push Indiana down the board a little bit. Again, I still feel very sure that they're going to be in this playoff field. I just think that there's a better chance that the committee pushes them down if they don't beat Ohio State. At 10, this might shock you a little bit. I have SMU at 10.
Oh, snap.
And so like I said when we were talking about the potential differences between the AP top 25 and the college football playoff rankings, I think the committee is going to value what SMU's been doing quite a bit. Particularly, like I think they're going to take into account what this team has looked like with Kevin Jennings because they set that precedent last year with Florida State and leaving them out without Jordan Travis. Like that was a precedent that they set was, okay, what can this team do now? Well, with Kevin Jennings, this team can beat the piss out of Pitt like they did on Saturday night, who was a previously undefeated team. Even without Kevin Jennings, they still only lost by two to who we have projected as the 4 seed in BYU. So like and SMU's scheduled to finish out. They have three more games. They play at home against Boston College off the bye. They play at Virginia, and then they host Cal. They're going 11-1. They're going to be in the ACC championship game. And with that resume, and especially like if they play Miami competitively in the ACC championship game, they're going to be ranked highly and going to make the college football playoff.
You bring up a great point there with them being 8-1 now. If they get to Charlotte, it honestly doesn't even really matter what they do. They're pretty much in.
Yeah, exactly. And like it kind of I'll be honest, it snuck up on it. It snuck up on me because like neither of us have had SMU even in our first four out the past few weeks. Like
No.
they just kind of crept up on us and it's like, "Oh, holy hell, like SMU is doing the damn thing." Like,
And if your two losses are to Big 12 champion BYU and ACC champion Miami,
yeah.
those are really good. So that'll get you like 10 or 11 probably. And you'd be debating them with like, okay, the Ohio State or Indiana who doesn't go to Indianapolis or the Tennessee, Georgia, Texas. Honestly, Ole Miss still has a chance to get to Atlanta. That's the
It's
weird.
weird world we're living in, man.
I almost had SMU in, but my last team in is Alabama right
Okay.
now. I think that was kind of my debate that we'll talk about here. And who did you have at 11?
11's where I have Penn State.
Okay.
I like you mentioned again in the first segment, I think the committee is going to dock Penn State pretty hard. And I think Penn State's going to be like the poster child for just like getting teams jumped. Again, I still think they end up in the playoff. I still think it's pretty close to assured that they end up in the playoff based on what their schedule looks like to finish out. Like James Franklin doesn't lose games he's not supposed to. That's kind of his deal. And they don't have any games that they're supposed to like not supposed to win on the rest of their schedule. So like you're not going to go to Indianapolis most likely, but you can still absolutely make the playoff. I just think that the committee is not going to rank them as highly.
That's absolutely fair and justified. Just before we reveal our first four out, and then we recap what they are, follow me on this. Just see if we could do like the playoff picture math because this is exciting. We don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday night. So I'm just thinking about how many teams. So the ACC is going to get two in. The
I
ACC, I
think
feel like
so.
Miami and SMU, it's looking pretty good. I think SMU is like not like a lock at this point, but it's like 47% chance they make it, which the
Yeah.
next one would be like Ole Miss with like 29. Everybody else
Yeah.
is like projected to get there. So that's two in the ACC. You put Notre Dame, that's three. You think the Big 12 just gets one.
Hmm.
And then obviously the group of five gets one. That's five. Five for fighting. We'll talk about that in a second. That leaves seven between the Big Ten and the SEC.
Hmm.
We might be living in a world where the SEC only gets three in now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana has kind of been the monkey wrench that's been thrown into all of this, honestly. Like when we were doing, preseason projections or looking at what this bracket could look like, we weren't factoring, like we looked at the Big Ten and we saw Oregon, we saw Ohio State, and we saw Penn State. And then we're like, will a fourth team kind of emerge and be with them? Like, is Michigan going to be better than we thought? Is an Iowa going to be able to fix their offense immediately, which it wasn't immediate, and that kind of is killing them right now. And like we were just like, is another like we didn't have the obvious candidate to fill a fourth Big Ten slot in the college football playoff. Now we do.
Yeah,
Indiana is very clearly that team. So like, and as the ACC is looking stronger than we thought with an SMU emerging, like that also throws a monkey wrench into what the SEC is trying to accomplish.
absolutely. And I'll definitely finish the show with some thoughts about the Big 12 and ACC. This was sitting there thinking about this with some Tammy and Paula for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so we did pretty good time on this one, on all things considered. Let's recap our 12. Oh no, first four out, and then we recap. There we go.
Yeah, first four out. So I say we just rapid fire these, but at 13, I have LSU. I think they beat Alabama, and that's why I have LSU at 13. 12, I have Texas A&M. Even if they lose to Texas, they're still going to be on the bubble. 15, I have Colorado. I think that's the Big 12 runner-up right now, with the way I'm looking at it. I just think that Colorado is playing like the second best team in the Big 12. And then 16 is where I have Alabama. I think they lose to LSU, but that's their only loss from here on out. So they're still in the conversation.
Oh, dude, we're all over the place. So I've got SMU at 13.
Okay.
I've got LSU at 14 for now. I think that Bama beats them.
Okay.
Excuse me, losing my voice again. 15, I've got Iowa State. I still kind of feel like they kind of hold the cards here with getting to Arlington. Whereas, like, if they lose, basically, if K-State beats Iowa State, Colorado goes. That's
Yep.
essentially what that is. And then 16, I've got Ole Miss because Ole Miss, if they beat Georgia, that changes the entire paradigm of what we know. And I think that's very possible. I'm very terrified of that game, by the way.
Yeah, Ellis or Ole Miss looked pretty damn good this past week. So we'll see what Georgia Ole Miss has cooking.
Yes. So let's go through our 12 and first four out and move on.
So 12 so okay, 12 teams. One Oregon, two Georgia, three Miami, four BYU. Then I have five Ohio State playing 12 Boise State, six Texas playing 11 Penn State, seven Notre Dame playing 10 SMU, eight Tennessee playing number nine Indiana. Give me Coach Sig with the upset there. First four out, LSU, Texas A&M, Colorado, and Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so number one seed, Big Ten champion, Oregon going to the Rose Bowl. I think that's how that goes. I can't remember. It doesn't.
I
Okay,
have no
Georgia.
clue,
Two
dude.
two would be Georgia. I think that's the Sugar Bowl. Three would be Miami with the Orange Bowl. Four would be BYU at the Fiesta Bowl. That's essentially how
Okay.
I think that is. The Cotton or Peach. I don't care. It doesn't matter. So 5-12 would be Ohio State hosting Boise State. 6-11 would be Texas hosting Alabama.
Oh, baby.
7-10 would be Indiana hosting Tennessee, like it's the Music City Bowl from a couple years ago.
Let's go.
And then 8-9, just so much baked in energy, just Midwest energy coursing through my veins. Notre Dame hosting Penn State.
Oh my God. Boy,
And first four,
boy.
first four out, SMU, LSU, Iowa State, Ole Miss. Yes.
We are a little all over the place when it comes to the first four out, for sure.
Again, it was a very crazy and chaotic weekend here in in
Yeah.
college football, but you only got 100 years to live and you can only watch 100 games. We're going to do some group of five for fighting because oh my God.
I'm 15 for a moment.
This was probably the most fascinating part of putting together our top 12. I almost put Boise State at 11. I almost did, but I just decided like I don't know if they're going to beat Alabama. That was kind of essentially my deciding factor there. But I think there's a chance if Boise State plays like they do, they could be as high as maybe the 10 seed.
No, absolutely. I mean, you start to look at what they've done this season, like that win over Washington State is not looking like your run-of-the-mill G5 team. Like Washington State is a really damn good football team, and like they handled their business against them, and how they played against Oregon. Like I've heard people talk about Ohio State getting credit for how close that game was. Well, Boise State was basically just as close. You kept it within a field goal against the number one team in the country. Like, there is going to be a case, and like, there's a reason I said for now because yes, there is the opportunity for a team like an Alabama, for a team like Tennessee, for even a team like Ole Miss to get a signature win, a really high quality win, and leap ahead of Boise State. There's also the chance that those teams lose those games, and I have a really hard time seeing any other teams having the opportunity to jump Boise State in the rankings. So like I not only do I think Boise State has a chance to not just be the 12 seed, I think they have a chance to go as high as like maybe 9.
Yeah. Because it's like you're at the point where like the quality win sort of component, like all things equal, you'd probably would put Georgia there because you've got like the Texas and Clemson win. That's compelling. Penn State doesn't have that. Indiana
No.
doesn't have that yet. And
Yeah.
then I'm sure there's an SEC team that doesn't have one yet either. I'm trying to think like who would that be that could be in the running for it.
I mean, you mentioned Texas. Like if Texas
Yeah.
loses to Texas A&M, like yeah, then we're having that conversation.
Yeah, because and then it's like it gets all muddy there. It's like essentially they'd be duking it out for like the fourth best team in the Big Ten or the fourth or fifth best team in the SEC. And at that
Hmm.
point, maybe or the runner up out of the ACC. That I don't know. I think it might actually happen. Like, do you think it's going to happen, or do you think what else needs to happen for Boise State to not be 12?
I honestly, I think it does happen. Like I think they end up as like the 9 through 11 seed. I think that the two big things that they need to happen are I think Ohio State needs to beat Indiana and do so handily because that's the highest level of competition Indiana will have seen. And like, while I still think Indiana would get into the playoff in that scenario, you can be docked for that. I think Penn State probably needs to have another game that's closer than it should be, at least on the scoreboard. Penn State's played at several games this year where they've thoroughly beaten their opponents, but not necessarily like blown them out, if that makes sense. And so like the style points factor there. I think. I think the big thing that needs to happen is Alabama needs to not beat LSU handily. Like, even if they win, I still think there's a case that you can keep Boise State ahead of Alabama just because, like, Alabama's going to have the LSU win and they're going to have the Georgia win, but you also have a loss to Vanderbilt and you have a loss to Tennessee. And I don't think you're going to lose to Auburn. I'm sorry. Auburn's not it. But, like, I think that people are wise enough to what this Alabama team is that Boise State's resume is still going to be valued over that as long as they don't just beat the brakes off of LSU.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking about Alabama. I'm like, I was thinking there might be a pathway for them in, even if they lost to LSU. Whereas if LSU loses, they're done.
Yeah.
Like, and at that point, like a 9-3 Alabama, you're comparing them with like potentially a 9-3 Georgia. Maybe you get in, maybe you don't. At that point, like, I don't think you really. There's just too many teams that are going to be rising to the top there.
Yeah.
Um, if Notre Dame loses another game, maybe you go ahead of them too. Like there's enough potential movement where if Boise State just stays the course, they could get as high as maybe 9. I don't, however, think that they can get the 4 seed. I think that like we know that the winner of the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be deserving. And I would venture to guess with if it's Miami or SMU, the ACC champion will be of that ilk. Honestly, and whoever really comes out of the Big 12 is probably the same sort of breadth as well, with even Colorado at 10-2.
Yeah. Like, I think Colorado versus Boise State would be an interesting conversation for the 4 seed.
K-State too. I think that's,
Yeah.
but like Iowa State and BYU would get in ahead of them probably. I would
Yeah.
think
I agree with that. I think so.
that is that is wild. Like it might actually happen. Like there have been other machinations of this playoff. If we would have had 12, like the COVID year, like there would have been two independent group of fives. Like Coastal would have gotten in, and I think Liberty would
Hmm.
have gotten in too, or BYU or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
That would have been
Coastal and someone
BYU,
else.
right?
It
I
was
think it was
Coastal for sure.
BYU.
Yeah, it's Coastal
That
for
was the
sure.
Zach Wilson year, wasn't it?
Damn right it was.
Hell yeah. Okay, okay.
Yeah, that was a very what the frick season.
The Jets are saying the same thing.
Ah, dude. Yeah, I know people are doing car wheels in the streets because Garrett Wilson kind of passed. I'm like, you're still going to go like 5-12.
Yeah, congratulations on being 3-6. Real proud of you guys.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the NFL right now. It's crazy, and I know you're
I,
not, but
I'm not at all, but that's okay.
Hornets doing okay? Or Kane started playing yet?
Hornets are frisky. They're not good, to be clear. They're never good, but they're fun to watch. Like I honestly at this point, that's all I can ask for from the Hornets because I've watched a lot of games where LaMelo Ball was not healthy, and let me tell you, that's not fun. I don't enjoy that quite even a little bit.
I mean, we lost to the Wizards twice. Like it's I think the whole division, and maybe I don't even know if maybe Miami's good, but I think it's just Southeast is just gonna be absolutely wild this year.
Yeah, there's not many good teams in that division. It's not pretty. But hey, you know what? The Tar Heels start their basketball season tonight. Gonna take down the Phoenix, and it's gonna be a good time.
I think we start too. Georgia might actually make the tournament this year. I think they got a shot.
Hell yeah, that's what we love to see.
Dude, haven't been to the tournament since like 2011 with Nemanja Đurđić.
Oh
The song,
yeah,
the Montenegrin songbird of our generation.
of course.
God, KCP didn't even go. That was like JJ Frazier,
Ant didn't
Dog,
go.
and didn't go. Claxton, no, it's been a
No.
long time, dude.
Yeah, the NIT legends, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Who's that coming down the NIT track?
That's right.
Any other thoughts with a group of five for fighting? I guess my last thing is like, could it be anybody else besides Boise who could potentially do this? I think Army could.
Army potentially. I have a harder time matching the resume to that point. Like if you beat Notre Dame, then
Yeah,
we can have that conversation. I
because you'd
don't,
be no,
again, it's hard for me to consider that right now.
yeah, for that to happen, you'd have to beat Notre Dame, Navy, and then probably Tulane in the American Championship. And at that
Mhm.
point, you could probably be 11 and Notre Dame would be like 12.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, I think the more interesting conversation, let's say Boise does run the table, but Army does beat Notre Dame and does run the table and end up at 13 and 0. What do we do there? Because that's well, let's save that for Thursday because I'll use that for break your brain.
Somebody break my brain.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. My brain's just a jar of flies right now. So, yeah, that's what I got there with the I think I told you about that. Like the music how they filmed the album cover for Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains.
Oh yeah.
It was like, yeah, this kid kept complaining about the flies. And he
Oh
just
my
they kept
God.
collecting from a horse and like, you're in New Mexico and it stinks. So that was basically so the flies kept dying.
Oh yeah, dude. We got I mean, you can kind of see it in the video or like hanging out back there. There's some fly paper because these horses are gross, dude. Always just nothing but flies everywhere. It's terrible.
Hey, no, no, no. And hey, no, no, no. No, somebody's not saying no, no, no. Hey, hey, goodbye. Maybe we should do that here with some. You're doing great, sweetie, with James Franklin. Oh my God, like who's a bigger clown in the coaching in the Big Ten between him and Lincoln Riley? And then Matt Rule too. Like they've got some really awful coaches in the Big Ten right now. Not everybody can be Coach Sig.
Not everyone can be Coach Sig. I mean, I still have my questions about Ryan Day as well. Maybe not as severe as they are with James Franklin, but they're still there. But yeah, I mean, it's just how long are we gonna keep doing this? Like that's kind of where I am with James Franklin. Like you look back at that Ohio State game, and like I don't think I was as critical of Penn State as I should have been on Saturday night. Just the more I think about what happened in that game. Okay, you get three red zone trips that result in 3 points with Andy Kotelnicki, who's supposed to be a great offensive mind. And I still respect him as an offensive mind, to be clear. This is not an Andy Kotelnicki problem, but it is a conservative coaching problem that we've seen with James Franklin time and again. And it's just like when he's not conservative, he's in his own head and making like poor decisions. Like, you know what you should probably do if your receivers aren't able to separate from this Ohio State secondary? Pepper Tyler Warren, scheme him open, and you're not doing that. You're using him as a decoy and trying to use other ways to win. Like it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's consistently this is what we've seen. Like Ohio State is a compromised offensive line. Penn State does get some pressure on Will Howard, but you're not able to fully take advantage of that. You still let Will Howard like like one thing we're forgetting. Yes, the final score was 20-13. It should have been 27-13. Will Howard fumbled a ball through the end zone because he like hit it off of his leg as he was running in there. Like they were that close to it being 27-13. Like this game was not as close as the final score would indicate. And it's very much a Penn State problem. Like I do not think Ohio State played that well in this game. Penn State just had played like their butthole was so tight that they could not do anything right in this game. And that's a James Franklin problem.
When James Franklin poop, it's just diamonds, man. He's so uptight.
100%.
No, it's the stuff that like, John Hickam gave his wife there in Colwood.
That's
It's the
right.
best I can do.
That's the best I can do.
Rest in peace, Ike.
We miss you, brother.
Um, so like, I think I said this on 3 Yards in a Cloud of Punt on Saturday's episode that I think Chip Kelly's kind of gumming it up there, just too many cooks in the kitchen. James Franklin's gumming it up. Honestly, I'd rather just have Tom Allen be the head coach and let Andy Koltanecki be there. I did say an article on Saturday. I'm like, this is a job. That game said Jim Knowles needs to be a Power Four head coach. Maybe go take over Penn State. That's the best job he could get. Like
Yeah.
he could have gotten Duke. I mean, he's coached at Cornell before. He's had success at Duke, Oklahoma State, and now Ohio State. I mean, yeah, I think he's like mid 50s or something like that. But like, you got to get somebody in there at Penn State who can do something. Like
Yeah.
some guy, it's like, okay, it's hitting the fan. Okay, Andy, pull him out. It's like those commercials with Case Keenum and Josh Dobbs coming in there, like with relief. Like, I got this, man. You did great. James Franklin just over there. He is the adult version of Caillou. He just a precocious brat that's why PBS canceled him.
No, 100%. I mean, if you need any more indication that he's a precocious brat, just look at the interaction he had with the Penn State fan heckling him. Like, dude, this isn't the first time he's done it either. Like, he's so prickly about his job and the job he's doing at Penn State. And like, I think the most damning thing when I think about Penn State and under James Franklin is when I always like get the most heated about him when it comes to NFL draft time. Because get to the NFL draft and Penn State has like 7 players that end up being taken in the top 150. Like this is a team that does have NFL talent. And to be fair, part of that is Penn State has one of the best strength and conditioning programs and development programs in the country. Like they don't recruit at the level Ohio State does. They don't recruit at the level that Michigan normally does. Like they do not recruit at that level. But they recruit at a decent level, and then they're masters at developing and getting the most athleticism out of these players. And yet, on the college football field, it does not translate to a higher level of success. When we've seen other programs who are able to do that, you look at Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. He was able to accomplish basically the same thing, like taking Ohio State castoffs, guys who maybe were on the fringe of Ohio State and be like, hey, you want to come be a star for Cincinnati? Getting them in the building, developing them. That's how you end up with like guys. And this wasn't, I don't know if Sauce Gardner was recruited by Ohio State at all, but like that's how you get a Sauce Gardner. That's how you get a Desmond Ritter. That's how you get these guys to develop at Cincinnati. Penn State is developing them, but then they don't have the coaching to back it up. Again, it is a James Franklin problem. I do wonder, let's say James Franklin were to go to Florida. Again, we're not sure Billy Napier is going to get fired, but it's just an easy example because of what we think the program ceiling of Florida is. If James Franklin were to go to Florida, I actually believe he would have a lot more success than he would at Penn State because he wouldn't be as focused on the other parts of that. I do wonder if like the Penn State job as it is for James Franklin just requires too much from him. Like you have to
Yeah.
really break your neck recruiting. You like Penn State is not dishing out NIL at the level a lot of these big programs are. So you have to really work your ass off as a recruiter, and then you have to work your ass off as a developer. And by the time you get to game day, how much energy do you really have left to be a great game day head coach at that point? Whereas Florida, you can focus more of your stuff on that. And like, because like when I look back at James Franklin when he was at Vanderbilt, yes, it was still a lot of development, but you don't have to worry about the recruiting aspect of that. It's development and game day. But now you're adding another layer to that I think is really like too much for James Franklin. And yes, that's still an indictment of him, but I do think he would have a better time out of Florida than he would Penn State.
I think he'd have a better time at Maryland going back to his roots. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, Loxley is doing fine, but like if that kind of runs its course, James Franklin could get that thing to like 9-3. Like, whereas
Yeah.
Loxley could get it to 8-4. Again, that's where he came up as Ralph Regent's disciple. Was the coach in waiting, and then that didn't happen. It just kind of feels like, he's from Pennsylvania. He played college football and stay, a lower level. Like, this is a dream job, but everything. When he got that job from Vanderbilt, I'm like, maybe he'll grow into it. And I don't know if he ever really did. I still feel like that, like, I listed five people that could replace him. And I think every single one of them would probably offer something that Franklin can't. Like Mark
Yeah.
Stoops, he might be running his course in Kentucky. He's from Ohio. He's taken the Ohio State castoffs.
Hmm.
He could do that. He could win with their talent there. I
Yeah.
mean, he took a Penn State cast off, and Will Levis had a great time there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What,
Penn State cast off who's not that great, frankly.
no, no, and he loves him some mayonnaise. What if Lance Leipold just came in and just became Andy Koldnicki's boss again?
Yeah.
Um,
That marriage
Matt
seemed to work before.
Matt Campbell could fix that because also you hire him, so Michigan doesn't hire him.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of options that make a lot of sense for Penn State. My boy Chip Patterson on the Cover 3 podcast compared James Franklin in a way that I would have never considered, but made pretty good amount of sense. Are we kind of on like a John Calipari type of situation where I don't know if Penn State is the administration is going to fire him because you look back and in the 14 playoff era, if it was a 12-team playoff era, Penn State would have a half dozen trips to the playoff under their belt already. Now, granted, they did not make the 14 playoff once, but they would already have like a half dozen. We already think that they have a really easy path to make it again this year at 11-1, even with the loss to Ohio State. But I actually think that like they're just like Kentucky was not cratering. Kentucky was still making the NCAA tournament. Kentucky was still putting together a lot of competitive teams under John Calipari. Sometimes these things just run their course. Sometimes you get to the end of it and it's just like the coach needs a change, the program needs a change, and you just mutually agree to part ways. It's not a firing or anything, but it's just like we need to shake things up. And Penn State feels like it might be getting to that point. And I would have never thought to compare it to Cal, but pretty decent given what we saw this offseason in college basketball.
I like that a lot too. There is one thing that I think we're overlooking. Mitch Barnhart has been at Lexington forever.
Yeah.
Like, whereas Dr. Patrick Kraft looked it up right now because I did not know who Penn State's AD was. He's been there since 22. So I
Mhm.
mean, like there may be a time. Obviously, he didn't hire James Franklin. He could probably move on from them. I mean, Franklin could also go replace Lincoln Riley too and reset that. I'm sure. I'm sure
Mhm.
USC could hire another unlikable head coach. That would be so cool.
Yeah, but except I think this unlikable head coach would actually have a lot of success at USC. Like I think James Franklin at USC is actually a dangerous thing for the rest of the Big Ten.
I like that more than him going to Florida
Yeah, I
considerably.
actually do
Yeah.
too, now that you say that.
Yeah. So
Florida's a little too toxic.
Florida's a little too toxic. I think the Gators like the players like Billy Napier, and I think that like
Oh
Scott
yeah.
Strickland likes him too. And also, if you're playing like Aiden Warner, man, like it's as long as you win Sunshine, I think you'll be okay. Anything
Which
else,
I,
like
I think I think Warner might be able to do that given what I just saw North Carolina do to Florida
I mean,
State.
your team's gonna go bowling probably. I think
I,
I think you beat NC State. I think you
we'll
can.
see what happens. I'm
House
not getting
divided,
I'm not putting the cart before the horse here.
house divided, but if it's like New Mexico State, it's outhouse divided.
Outhouse divided indeed.
Any other thoughts about James Franklin before we move on?
Just I need something different, man. I'm tired of watching the same Penn State Ohio State game for 10 years.
Okay, so with that, if they make a change, I don't know what would merit them. Like, okay, 10-2 and they miss the playoff. Let's just say that that's enough. Like they
Yeah.
lose to like Sparty. I don't know who they're playing like the rest of the year, but like they lose one of their final like 3 or 4 games.
Hmm.
So
So I don't foresee that based on what I'm looking at currently. They play at Purdue off of the or yeah, no, sorry. They play Washington at Purdue, at Minnesota, host Maryland.
okay,
Uh,
Washington, Minnesota, Maryland are all losable games.
yeah, they're losable, but again, James Franklin does not lose those games. James Franklin loses to Ohio State and Michigan, and that's it.
think it'll beat Maryland. I don't know. Washington, Minnesota, they're a little sneaky. Minnesota's a little more sneakier than I thought. Yeah, PJ
Yeah.
Fleck's off the hot seat, by the way. That's comes as quite a shock.
He had the sweater vest ready, and it's cooling down, and he's nice and toasty still.
That boat don't row itself, brother.
That's right.
So if you had to replace James Franklin with anybody just to completely reset it, who is it? Who's your number one target for him?
I think it would be Lance Leipold to retain Andy Kotelnicki for at least another year. Because, like you mentioned in the Jim Knowles article, like Andy Kotelnicki does kind of look like he might need a little more seasoning before he's ready for a P4 head coaching job. And so, like bringing Lance Leipold, a man who's won at every spot he's been in, and is now just dealing with the reality of Kansas football, where your resources are just extremely limited. Like all the resources of that athletic department are going to the basketball program. We know this, and so bringing him in, allowing him to reunite with Kotelnicki and the match that they've made before, and then on top of that, like his ability to recruit and develop and identify talent, like the ceiling of a Lance Leipold Penn State is quite high.
That was my number two. Initially, I had Matt Campbell, but I think it's Lance Leipold because I think the exit strategy is easier. Matt Campbell's like, I'm only going if I can bring if I can bring Jamie Pollard, but Jen Cohen's like, nah, just come here.
Nah, nah, we're not doing that.
Nah, honestly, if USC hires Matt Campbell, they're gonna win like 11 games next year.
Oh
Like, I
yeah,
don't
they
care.
might win a
I don't.
national championship, frankly.
He just thinks he's still coaching at Iowa State with the same color scheme,
100%.
a souped up Iowa State.
Oh God, sorry. The snow and ice are starting to come down and it's banging against the window.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And speaking about banging against the window, we're gonna pour one out and we're gonna go bowling, 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 bowling. Yes.
Yes, sir.
We got to pour one out for one, two, three, four, five, six, seven teams.
Yeah.
Start with Air Force. They're on a
Team,
7 game
team's,
losing
this
skid.
team's
They're
bad.
bad.
They're so bad. Army didn't even play Bryson Daly and still won by 17 points, man.
It's like the service academies. It's like you can only so many can be so good at the same time. When Army and Navy are playing really well, that takes away from what Air Force can do, and that program's on the ground.
It's yeah, they've been grounded for sure.
Gonna pour one out for the Akron Zips. I don't even know what you do at this point. Maybe you just get Jason Taylor to be the head coach. Just have him and LeBron coach the team. Just do it. Or Charlie Fry. I don't even know what you would do. Joe Moorhead's
Just
not
make
it.
it
This
up.
team sucks.
Do you remember that fan controlled football league? Just make it that. Just make the Akron Zips program fan controlled.
Have Vince and Aaron run the program. This
My
dude.
God. No, he would run it into the ground on purpose.
I mean, if you pay Vince and Aaron 8 figures, he would do it.
100%.
Yes, make amends with Zippy the Kangaroo and the former Rubber Bowl. Hey Bubba, hey Bubba
Hey,
the Rubber
Bubba.
Bowl. That
Oh
place
my
is fine.
God.
Pour one out for the Kennesaw State Owls. I don't think they were even bowl eligible. It's their first year
Yeah.
at FBS. They got the big win over Liberty. Brian Bohannon, I believe, is their head coach. They'll figure it out. This is a period of adjustment. This is why they typically don't make teams making the move up get there. Look at what Sam Houston did. Sam Houston's
Yeah.
now going to a bowl game. They had a really rough year last year.
That's legit. You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, like, Kennesaw State's been a really well-run program under Bohannon for quite a while now. And, like, I don't think that's going to stop. Like, the transition year, teams like programs like JMU, programs like Jacksonville State, those are the outliers. That's not what we typically see.
No question. Yeah. KSU it'll be interesting. Hopefully they play a tournament with Georgia Southern and Georgia State every year.
That's right.
Um,
Winner gets to play Georgia.
Georgia State versus Kennesaw State. It's called the Commuter Bowl.
Oh God, kill me. That's a hell of a commute.
Two commuter schools going at it. It'd be awesome. They can't play. It won't be the Gingrich Bowl. That would be no way. That would be no. We could cancel the media.
No, we don't want
Yeah.
that.
Next one's a little sad. We haven't talked about this a lot. Nevada's in a really bad spot right now. You've mentioned this before. The Wolfpack again, historically, they're the better program in state over UNLV just because
Yeah.
they've had the Chris Alts of the world, and UNLV's had Randall Cunningham, but now they got Barry Odom. They've had a Wolfpack. So what's the head coach? Jay
Jeff
Norvell.
Choate. Oh, Jay Norvell. Okay.
Jay
Left him
Norvell
high and dry.
leaves
Yeah.
high and dry. They bring in Ken Wilson, and he couldn't do
That
anything.
was
Jeff Choate's,
rough.
and then yeah, worst Mike Leach disciple ever, and Ken
Yeah.
Wilson, not Kevin Wilson, Ken Wilson. The Wilsons might as well have had a volleyball coach in that team. And then you bring Jeff Choate in there, who had success at Montana State, been on Steve Sarkisian's staff at Texas. I thought they'd be better than this. I thought they'd be. I think that would. I figured they'd be like a 4-8 team, but like they wouldn't be out of it already.
So I will say that I'm actually still high on Nevada. Like Nevada, just eye test wise, is a much better football team than they were a year ago. Like I think Jeff Choate is still a good coach. Like that has not changed over the past 6 months. Like that's not. I'm not worried about that. I think they have the right guy in the building. The thing that in modern college football and with the NIL, with the transfer portal and stuff like that, Jay Norvell gutted this roster when he
Yeah.
left. And then you brought in Ken Wilson, who was bad at this job. So he's not recruiting at even a Nevada level. He's getting out recruited for in-state talent by Barry Odom at UNLV. And now, like, I think having Jeff Choate, that'll start to normalize. It's just not going to be a quick process. But like the eye test tells me that this Nevada team is just playing a lot better than they were a year ago.
I'll compare them to two Power Four schools that I think had similar issues, Colorado and Vanderbilt. I feel like there's
Yeah.
like Colorado, you had Mel Tucker for a season after Mike McIntyre failed, and he goes to Michigan State. You promote, okay, I guess we got to hire Carl Doral. He did okay in COVID, all things considered. Then it hit the fan. Deion Sanders brought some juice in there, and then now we finally see the Buffs playing with all. Also, I don't think Deion's gonna want to leave for whatever reason. I feel like he's got too much control here, and I think that the opportunity there with him is intriguing. Then again, Auburn could pay him could pay him nine figures.
Yeah. Auburn can just like give him the deed to the
We're
university.
going to give you Yellowwood.
That's
It's
right.
rebranded as Prime Lumber.
Prime number 88, baby. Let's go.
Prime Lumber 88. It's not a 2x4, it's a 2x1 for 21.
That's right.
And then obviously Vanderbilt, the end of with God, what the hell is that head coach there? The guy, um, previous head
Derek
coach,
Mason?
Derek Mason. Yeah, Middle Tennessee's we're gonna we might be talking about them here pretty soon, but they're not
Yeah.
quite there yet. But he did good there for a while, really made his number beating Tennessee when Tennessee was down, under Pruitt and Butch Jones fell in hard times. And now Clark Lee's kind of got that homing, so maybe Nevada can do that.
Yeah. 100%.
I got to pour one out for Purdue. Uh, maybe they'll fire Ryan Walters during the podcast too, like the Saints did with Dennis Allen. Ryan Walters was not ready for this. It just
No.
shows, like, yeah, I think he's a future college football head coach, but right now he needs to go back and go be a DC somewhere. Like maybe bring him on at Ohio State when Jim Knowles leaves.
I mean, honestly, the big thing for me with Purdue is I think you have to have an offensive minded head coach. Like you look at the
Yeah,
reasons that Jeff Brom had success there, and it's because Jeff Brom's one of the best offensive minds in college football. And
Joe
like,
Tiller. Yeah, Joe Tiller
yeah,
too back in the day. Yeah,
exactly. Like to close, like you're always going to have a talent gap at Purdue. You just are. And like, especially now with Indiana under Coach Sig, like if this continues, if he stays there and doesn't try to move up even higher in the Power Four, like now you're having even harder time recruiting in state if you're Purdue. So like you need someone who's going to be able to close the gap with scheme. And a defensive minded head coach, that's a lot harder to do.
I know. Maybe Colt Necky takes that job. That might be a disaster
Yeah, I don't
potentially.
know about that, but we'll see.
I think a Buster Faulkner would probably be good for there. I think
Hmm,
that'd be a really good fit there. I think
I
that
like that.
Tech's kind of nervous about Tech, to be honest with you. We're gonna pour one out for Stanford. This program's dead. Like there's nothing. I think this is the Power 14 we talked the least about.
Yeah, it's got to be up there. I mean, like, what's there to talk about? Like, and like, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be mean, but like, they've given us no reason to talk about them. They're
No.
a step. They're a doorstep. That's literally all they are at this point.
I can't even think who's second, who's got nothing interesting to talk about. I can't
Yeah.
even I don't even know who would that even be? Like who we talk the least about? Probably Northwestern, but
Northwestern, maybe like feel like we don't. Well, I don't know. We do exhaust a decent amount of oxygen with like Tony Elliott when it comes to like coaching conversations and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like we don't talk a lot about Minnesota,
no, we don't talk a lot about
but
no, we don't talk a lot about Minnesota. We don't really talk a lot about TCU either. But like it's
yeah,
yeah, Stanford's way at the bottom. Yeah.
yeah, it's down there.
I think they got to get a new head coach. I think they got to get a guy who's, been at Division One before. I don't care if he won
100%.
at Sac State. Like I don't even know. Give Andrew Luck the team. Why not? He's bored.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do it. Christian McCaffrey may never play again. Give it to him.
Richard Sherman could get him fired up. Maybe get a Harbaugh. Maybe Jim Harbaugh just goes back. There's the check bounces there in Los Angeles, and he can't take
Just,
his wife to PHA.
just give Jack the job. Jack Harbaugh.
Give him his bucktooth kid the job.
That's
That's
right.
I have some thoughts about that afterwards. It's just it was a very interesting Halloween. And then we also got to pour one out for UMass. Tyson Pumachan, Don Brown. UMass just needs to join the MAC and just try to reinvent itself there because this whole like
Mhm.
national independent thing, it's not working for them. It's working out really well for UConn, who we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, no, like it's I mean, yeah, you're right. It's clearly not working. I think the Mac will be better for them. I think the first few years in the Mac might be tough because like this roster is far behind right now. Like they just it's pretty tough to watch.
Yes, it's pretty tough to watch, but it's not pretty tough to watch these teams. We got a bunch of teams that are going bowling, 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 bowling. Do you want to read, or do you want to be an ass? Which one?
I'll be an ass, baby. Let's do it. I'm in the mood.
You're in the mood. Shout out to the Arizona State podcast and our good friend Kenny, because Arizona State is.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Yes. We don't know if Jay Norvell is a good person, but the Colorado State Rams are.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Clay Helton's doing something in Statesboro that Lincoln Riley may not be doing there in Los Angeles because the Georgia Southern Eagles are.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Who knew that Brendan Sullivan was the best thing to happen to Iowa ever? The Hawkeyes are.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
uh PJ Fleck is looking really nice there in his sweater vest because the Minnesota Golden Gophers might be the fifth best team and the Big Ten, and they are.
Bowling, 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 bowling. Don't forget about the Cardinals. You skipped them.
Cardinals. Yes, I did. I got my microphone's right here. I can't see it. Louisville Cardinals, the birds with teeth, and Jeff Brom. They.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Fran Brown. This is how we do it with Kyle McCord because when you do it with Kyle McCord, you go.
Bowling, bowling, bowling. Even with three-piece pick sixes, still bowling.
you know, in between shaking babies and kissing hands, Joe McGuire somehow found a way with Baron Morton Salt to take Texas Tech.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Your least favorite group of five team. You don't like Jason Candle at all, but Toledo is.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
They don't play in a conference. They might be in the Big East. They should just join the Big 12 because I think they're ready. They're not stepping out of the back of the end zone like Dan Orlovsky, nor are they living in a haunted house with Jim Mora Jr., Mora Jr. The Yukon Huskies are.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
And the best, gotta say the best. This is the best for second for last because there's one more after this.
That's
The
right.
live dog, Diego Pavia, and the Vanderbilt Commodores are.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
And this is kind of shocking. We've got two Helton brothers going there with
Hell
Tyson doing things
yeah.
up there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They're going.
Bowling, 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 bowling.
Honestly, Western Kentucky should play Georgia Southern. Just like that would be amazing. The
Oh
Helton
my
Bowl.
God, yeah. The Helton Bowl. Let's go.
Uh, Fred Durst is just he doesn't even
coursing
he
through
doesn't
my
even,
veins.
he doesn't even know it hit him. And
Oh
I mean,
God.
oh God, sometimes I get out of bed and I put on my my uniform, which is spray painting my face and a bunch of crazy regalia. I think I look like Wes Borland, but in reality, I just look like Kevin Parker because the less I know, the better.
That's right.
Tammy and Paula, yes, we haven't done this in a while. I think I did it with
Hmm.
Alicia when you were across the pond. So we're gonna do less I know, the better to finish up the program today. We're going to do the thing that we got the most right through the first 2 months of the season, the thing that we learned the most, and the thing that we're going to keep getting wrong. So, Cody, what would you say you got the most right through the first 10 weeks?
I think my complete and utter doubt about Michigan still stands out as like the thing that I nailed this season. Like you look at this Michigan team and like there's I will give Michigan credit and Sharon Moore some credit. They are improving. Like the offense is functional now. It's not good. It's functional though, which is more than I can say for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. But like we saw the problems this team had at quarterback. We saw the lack of receivers that they had on that side of the ball. I forecasted Wink Martindale is a downgrade from Jesse Minter. And like this team was still being ranked top 15 going into the season. Why? Did not make sense at the time. And I've been proven right with every passing week.
I think you've sniffed out three teams that were ranked in the top 10 that you just didn't buy. Obviously, we didn't see Utah being this bad of a sad bag of crap, and I don't think we saw Florida State being this awful, but you sniffed all three of them pretty out. But I would say, yeah, you're right. Your disdain for Michigan, or not disdain, doubting of Michigan was spot on. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't dislike Michigan. I know what I see.
Michigan man, Antonio, Bulldog. Okay,
That's
bye.
right.
I would say the thing that I was the most right about is I've been spot on with Miami and SMU. I felt like I've
Mhm.
been like it's looking like that's going to be the ACC championship game. I had Miami going 11-1. They still haven't lost a game yet. I had SMU going 11-1. That's kind of what they're on track to do. And I don't think I ended up putting SMU into the playoff picture initially, but like I considered just because I thought that like Kansas State would be more compelling. But yeah, I was been really spot on about that. And I would say I've been me being pretty high in Indiana was good. Didn't think they were gonna get this good. I thought they were gonna be like 8-4.
No, 100%. Yeah. But no, I'll give you definitely definite shouts on the ACC and how you saw it because I'm not going to mention it in things that lessons I've learned, but one of my worst takes was NC State, who I had, winning the ACC this year.
What's the yeah, that was the Alabama waterfall ran out of water.
Yeah, it dried up. It's in a drought.
I've been going through this thing where like people, I keep seeing this on social media, like people with dreads, like not washing them, and like she hasn't washed her hair in a decade, and like you're never gonna believe what was in her hair. Like just
I'm pretty sure I would if you haven't watched it in a decade.
I almost said something awful. I'm like, just no, we're not gonna do that. We're just I can't. It seems like your hair is so gross. Like we can't let you in this restaurant. It smells so
Ugh,
bad.
ugh. No, thank you.
No, no, it's not good for you or anybody else. That poor bed, man. It's
No,
good.
God. Oh.
So what would you say was the biggest lesson you learned besides washing your hair? Which I think you already
Besides
told me.
washing my hair, so the lesson I've learned is I really got to chill out with what I think of teams after early season losses. And that's kind of like a really macro take, but like you look at teams that lost early in the season that I was really and like varying levels of early in the season, but like that I was ready to completely change my tune on. You look at a Notre Dame, you look at an A&M, you look at an SMU, you look at a Colorado, you look at even a Georgia losing that Alabama game. After all those games, I tend to get reactionary and I tend to like want to downgrade them a lot. I forget that they're 18 to 22-year olds and there's a lot of variance in this sport. That's why we love it. But like not only do I have to give these teams the grace for a letdown game, but I also have to consider when you look at like an SMU, okay, you lost to BYU. At the time, that loss looked bad, but we did not know how good BYU was. So, like, when you consider those two things, like, you have to wait till you get the full picture before you're ready to completely write teams off, especially with early season losses.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I feel like that's something that like I would totally agree with, and I'm certainly guilty of. I'm like, they're dead. Like it's week 2. No, they're not. I was so mad. I was
They're dead.
so mad about Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois. And now I'm like, oh, they're gonna make the playoff. It's just like it's the same sort
Yeah.
of stuff, you know. It's chicken little. The sky is not falling. This this one came to me. I think you might like this one. I am learning that the power void at the top of the Big 12 is inadvertently made the ACC more powerful. I did not
Mm,
see this coming.
I like that.
Because it's like you're sitting there thinking, okay, Oklahoma State, okay, Kansas State, okay, Utah is going to occupy it. They haven't. So
Hmm.
you're putting teams up there like BYU and Colorado and Iowa State who you don't really trust. At the same time, the helmet component, it's like really helping teams out like Miami and Clemson. And because they're looking pretty good, even Florida State being down, SMU's right up there. Like I just feel like the power void has inadvertently opened up another spot for the ACC to get 2 teams into the playoff this year. Entering this season, we're like, oh, the ACC is fourth. The Big 12's, they got so many things. They got so many nice things. But Brett, you missed your mark.
Yeah. No, I mean it's honestly, it feels mostly if you want to point the finger at one program, like Utah's the one that's like, bro, you're really killing this conference right now. Like you're not doing us any favors at all.
Oklahoma State too. PU, that team
Yeah,
stinks.
true. They're very bad actually. They're worse than Utah.
The still water is actually still water, and everybody's getting infected in the water supply.
Yeah, it's not great, brother.
And what are you going to keep getting wrong?
Uh, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm gonna keep believing that Lane Kiffin can win a big game. I think he's too damn good of a head coach to continue in this James Franklin-esque cycle with more flash, more flair. But like we don't talk about it, but Lane Kiffin is very much in the James Franklin mold. Like going to the driving school, 10-2 is going to get it done every year. Probably going to be 9-3 if they lose to Georgia this year, but still, like it's just. But I'm going to keep believing in it because I believe in the scheme, I believe in his vision, and like I'm going to keep getting it wrong because I'm a Lane Kiffin guy. I think he is vastly underrated as a college football coach. Like I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the country.
I think he's really good too. I don't know how I'm going to pick that game. I'm sure it'll be part of JLN here on Thursday. Shout out, we're doing a Shania Twin this week.
It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it's gonna get you good, I'll tell you that much.
That's right.
I like that. I'm gonna keep getting it wrong. I'm gonna keep overvaluing the importance of coordinators when if the head coach is just so domineering, I couldn't find like the right word, dominating, dominant. It's like, this coach, D'Anton Lynn's gonna make a big deal. Well, you still have Lincoln Riley, and it doesn't matter. Oh, Andy Kolchenecki and Tom Allen's gonna make a big difference. Oh, still James Franklin. Oh, I don't really trust Glenn Schumann. Yeah, it's Kirby Smart's team. It's the same. Oh yeah, Adam Fuller stinks. Well, Mark Neville will still keep his job. I'm gonna keep doing this because like I want to be ahead of the curve, finding coaches who are ready for the next big opportunity. But like maybe I'm giving the coordinator too much credit when like the head coach is fostering them to have the environment to succeed or fail. Either way.
No, 100%. I also actually had an alternate here about coaching. I'm gonna miss the next coach Sig. Like I'm going to miss that. Like granted, I don't know if there's going to be this level of success that Indiana is having, but like when you look at coaches, like I'm not going to like you're talking about, keep overvaluing coordinators. I'm going to keep like slow playing how much a coaching upgrade can change a program immediately. And that's just how I'm going to operate. Like I can be optimistic long term, but still not like I was optimistic about the coach Sig hire. I did not think they were going to go 9-0 to start this season. And I'm going to keep making those types of mistakes where the immediate turnarounds I'm not going to see coming.
I'll ask you this question to wrap this up. You gonna do that with John Summerall, who I think is the best Group of Five head coach out there at Tulane?
At this point, I might, given what Tulane is doing this season, but that might be like the only exception to the rule. Like,
Like if he, yeah, like if he goes to Penn State or Kentucky, are you gonna do this? Maybe.
yeah, like it's in the cards. Like I might get over my skis a little bit with John Summerall.
I feel that, and this episode was over at skis. Yes, this was episode 1, 2, 3, 123 of Fall Start. Woo!
Getting up there,
God,
man.
getting up there, man. It's we're getting closer and closer to a. Please drink your coffee real quick.
Sorry.
We're getting we're getting closer and closer to Nick Miller's credit score.
Hell yeah, we are. We're almost there.
And you too can get a better burner phone. But in the meantime, I don't know if you can get Twitter on that phone, but if you do, you can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. We didn't do 4 for 4 this week, but you give us a 5-star review or say it's a 6-star review there on Apple. That would be great.
We
And
did 5 for fighting, so 5 stars.
five, I got, yeah, gotta live, I guess. Superman or whatever other things. There's a third song by that dude. I don't remember what it was called, but he did make another song.
It was a song that happened. It was like well after the first two, but I don't remember what it was either.
And so I'll be talking to you guys here again, semi live after Thursday night because we're going to be doing a playoff reaction show, Goldilocks style. So it's going to be three segments. So too hot, too cold, just right. So
Mhm.
probably about 20 minutes or so. I think we'll alternate. It's really depending on the schedule and stuff, however that is. But it's going to be me hanging out with Bubba. He may be part of the program. It's going to be unbelievable.
Hey, Bubba, we love to see it.
It's going to be a 5th of November to remember.
That's
And
right.
this is false start.